it is 6:30. Okay,
It's like a minute behind.
okay. Let's call the meeting to order for the Harvard Tree Board, July 10th meeting, 6:30 p.m. Let's see, we've got Janet Hugg, Jay Wolf, Shawn Kingzette, Shannon Kingzette, and myself here, so we have a quorum. Joel, just blanking on his name.
Can't help you.
Kriete, yes, Joel Kriete is not present. Okay, so we have a quorum.
Yes?
And there he is. Look at that.
Hey.
Okay,
Right.
You must have heard your name.
he was going by that clock.
Must be.
Oh, yeah. Doing a perimeter check,
Yeah.
everything's good.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Public comment, no public, so no comment. Approval of minutes from May 1 and June 5th. Did everybody have a chance to look at those? Have a motion to approve?
I move that we accept the minutes of June 5th.
May 1st.
And May 1st?
Oh,
Both.
I've got June, both of them? I've got June 5th here.
Did folks get the May 1st minutes?
If once, they were
Okay.
emailed out, I printed them out.
Yeah,
Make
that's,
sure I had them.
Well, I would say go ahead and approve June 5th, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you can push May 1st to the
Yeah,
next
we'll
meeting.
do that next time. Make sure everybody gets a copy, so. Okay, Janet made a motion to approve June 5th. Do we have a second? Jay, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've got minutes, half the minutes. Okay, so Rob, it looks like you have some information to share with us on ordinance language?
There was a few things that were discussed the last time that we all met. You can see in the minutes from the June meeting that there were a few things discussed, and I used that as my basis for the memo. A few things, one of the big things that came up was the penalty language, where we don't currently have any penalty language in there. So inserting violations that are, we wanted to amend the penalty language. So we took it from the fine not to exceed $500 for each offense, and added, added the subject to a fine of the cost of the removal of the tree, remediation of the right-of-way, replacement of the tree, plus an additional $500 penalty per occurrence, subject to the tree board review, to give it back to the tree board, so that way if there's any issues that, if it was a repeat offense, or if it was a first-time offense, or somebody honestly just didn't know what they were doing, it gives a little bit of discretion to the tree board. The only thing I think I would add in here, and I just caught this just reading through it again, is when we talk about permits required in the next section, adding another line or carving it out, because right here in the end, it says any nuisance tree planted on public property will be subject to removal, or in the case of planting trees without a permit would be double the permit fee. If the purpose of the permit is to basically regulate private trimming of public trees, so also should put in there any trimming or harming or modification of public trees should be double the permit fee. I mean, if we feel that $50 is a worthy fine for that, say, hey, you trimmed a bunch of limbs off this tree that you should have asked us about. Is that a $50 offense, or does that run into, going up to the $500 penalty?
For any trimming, though.
Right. So that would be the question.
Do we trim to damage?
Right. So trim to damage could be, where we kick it up to the 500, but, trimming without a permit where we have to do all this stuff in reverse, $50. So I can amend the language to that.
How would you determine that? Like an example of,
It would really depend on, what we are so, we're strapped for time. So we can't drive around and check this stuff.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to at least mention that, for this case.
I know Public Works does do some trimming of the trees in right-of-way, but typically you only trim them
Hazard.
over the roadway, not
We-
the sidewalk.
So we will trim over the sidewalk, if there's a hazard presented or somebody, calls us about it. Or, in instances, this year in particular, we've had quite a few trees where somebody will call us and say, hey, this thing looks like it's, got crotch rot and it's splitting down the middle. Half of it's gonna go to the street, but the other half is gonna touch my house. So, in those cases, we'll make a determination whether or not we just limit or we take it down in its entirety. And we've taken down a few in their entirety this spring.
Do we permit homeowners to trim the trees in a right-of-way if they request permission to do so?
Generally, nobody does because there's no avenue for it right now. And most people they don't want to pick up the saw, so they'll be like, hey, there's something wrong with my tree, but it's on your guys' side of the sidewalk, so you come trim it. So that's
That was my
generally what we
question.
get.
Do we need a permit for that? Because I've got the maple on Burbank there that had some low suckers on it that I trimmed off, didn't hurt the tree, but technically it's
Yeah.
right on where the sidewalk would be.
Right.
Oh, we prune our linden all the time.
Yeah, well, and we do our maples and
Yeah.
our,
Is it currently a problem?
Yeah.
Are people
I
butchering
don't
trees?
have a problem, unless we're talking about, like the oak tree on 14.
We
yeah,
don't talk about that. For
yeah,
Yeah, so
Was that was a parkway tree that was topped?
it's like this weird in between because the sidewalk curves around it. He
Oh,
did
yeah.
talk to me and he said he'd like to remove the tree and he didn't know. He's like, well, I'm like, that's a state right of way. That's a state right of way tree.
Yeah.
If you're looking for assistance in that, you're going to have to call them and they're going to have to set up,
yeah.
traffic
And maybe
lanes
you
and-
shouldn't have butchered it, and it would still be a healthy tree.
So, but that's just something I'll mention. So permit required, this is inserting the language into, the tree board language, that no person shall plant or move, cut above the ground, disturb any tree on any street, park, or public place without first filing an application. The person or persons receiving the permit shall abide by the standards set forth in the ordinance, and then the fees and charges are determined by the applicable fee schedule found in chapter 20. That will cause us to insert a fee into chapter 20, which will be under miscellaneous fees for a tree permit for $25. And once all this is accepted, I'll create or repurpose a tree permit from somebody else. Don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we'll throw it up so that we can start having a method to do this. I'll bring it before the tree board for approval. And then, because we don't technically have any language that addresses trees, amending Title 1104 from public nuisance regarding plant, lawn, and weed control to public nuisance regarding tree, plant, lawn, and weed control. And then just amending that language to also include trees. And then anywhere in the section where it would say trees, just refer to section 5.06 because we don't need to have this in a bunch of different places. I know this was talked about last time as well, is boards and commissions the best place to have all tree ordinance related items?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think it's confusing. But don't ask me where it should be.
Well, I have a question already kind of sort of related to this. Section 4 issues with people that have issues with trees on private land next to their house. I've got somebody, I think they reached out to you. They got the tree in their neighbor's yard, it's about ready to fall down and take out a chunk of their house. And they were like, well, how do we deal with this? How do we, I don't think that we have a place on the city website that says, okay, this is, as a private citizen, if your neighbor's tree is dead and dying and getting ready to fall over on my house, what do I do about it?
In those instances, I refer them to code enforcement because on private property, public works and right of ways really has no say in that game. I think technically the law is you could go skyward from your property line and butcher that thing as much as you want and just make it go straight up. How many people are going to do that? I can't say.
Yeah, but in this particular case, the tree's a hazard, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I think you're right, it would fall under code enforcement, but it would be a hazardous condition versus,
Because
where the tree needs to be
and we can
removed.
require them to remove a hazardous tree on private property. I mean, that's in the tree ordinance, in the,
Yeah, so in
Boards
the
and
tree
commissions
ordinance,
section.
it talks about having power over the, let me pull it back up here. So in the tree ordinance, there's language for such things. So, the owner of land adjacent to any street or highway, no property owner shall allow a tree or other plant growing on his or her property to obstruct or interfere with pedestrians. Let's see, that's not the one. Private properties have private property owners have the duty at their own expense to remove or treat nuisance trees on their property. The city removed trees at such owner's expense if the owner does not comply with treatment and or removal as specified by the director within notification period. So basically, we would have to,
You need to issue an abate nuisance notice to have
Right.
it removed. If they don't remove it by a certain time period, the city can remove it at their expense and lien the property.
Doesn't, to start the process, the city doesn't have authority to pass the easement, let's say ordinance enforcement, but if you, get the, permission of the property owner, is the only way to get real eyes on it.
yeah,
to
so
enforce the complaint.
generally speaking, in that scenario, we would have been contacted by the private property owner, and if it was in the backyard per se, because we only have
Right.
certain rights up to the front door, if we're allowed in the adjacent property, you know, hey, look at my neighbor's tree, and then you can see it from the property that you were welcomed on,
Right.
you know, that's where we could start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe to clarify the process a little more. You know, if you called it in, you didn't get a response or the result you wanted, you should know the next act of,
yeah,
should be taken. Depends how far you want to get into it, right?
Right.
But
right.
Currently, it's code enforcement, though, that would
Yes,
implement.
because we don't have, you know, as Public Works, we don't have the
The police power.
well, I
Yeah,
mean, it's not
I
that
mean-
we don't have the police power, but we really don't have any avenues right now for citing code enforcement, writing tickets, and
Yeah.
then the process to go through. So this would fall upon code enforcement to say, hey, you know, a neighbor's got a nuisance tree, it's dangerous, and then like Mayor said, start the process.
Hard would it be to have all of this in one section of the website? I could see somebody's looking for tree information and then they find the tree information for we do, they were looking for private. Conversely, it could be the other way around. They're looking for something on the private and then they find the page that has all the code enforcement for the private property.
I mean, right now, all of this is in the tree ordinance, you know, with the private property stuff, with, that's basically this references the director, but, you know, that, it just says director, so it could be community and economic development director, code enforcement director.
can we go back a minute? I had another question.
Yeah.
The tree permit fee, is that something we want to actually have attached? I'm going to cite a few examples. You don't charge a permit fee for garage sales, but you do need a permit, right? Just an example. But if someone's buying a $400 or $500 tree, putting in an easement, which ultimately transfer ownership to the city, would people be a little reluctant? Or would they ask like they do with all the other things they ask for when they say, hey, can we bypass this fee? I'm putting in a tree, it's $500. I don't feel I should have to give another 25.
I think the original idea behind the $25 fee is to cover somewhat of staff time, because in a garage sale permit, there's no city action other than
Right.
accepting it and knowing, but in tree permit fees, or in the case of these tree permits, it would be going out there, site visit, taking a look, is this the right tree in the right place?
Well, the permit's not the question, it's the money side. I'm wondering, do you really need it when, there's probably more garage sales than, say, a tree installation.
He just said, though, they don't have to go and review garage sales, but they do have to go and review a tree placement.
Okay. Well, it's just an example of why you would have to get a permit for one, not enforced, we all know that. But this one has a fee attached. Just questioning why for one, not another, when we all know there's at least 50 garage sales a weekend.
Just
Maybe
because
3 trees are planted?
Just because of staff time.
Right. I'm just saying from a citizen's point of view, lack of that consistency. You know, this is where you have those discussions of, well, why do we do this and they don't do that?
Right.
And does the permit,
Have him come out and take a look at the spot.
right, but we already discussed last time, we're not gonna really inspect the hole or go through the thing, how hard is it to plant a tree is kind of
No,
what
I
we got
mean,
out of it.
We're not gonna, because that came up the past time, where I'm not gonna come out and, check the hole, but
Right.
there's gonna be a locate involved, there's gonna be time out there to, do you have overhead wires, is there any B-box, anything that's in your way? And, sort of kind of what we have here with, what Sean's provided is, is this the right tree for that area, which will require a site visit.
Yeah, so I guess if there is staff time involved beyond just accepting the permit, then, to me, then it makes sense to have some fee, that goes with that. And then if we have some fee, then failure to get the permit does give us the ability to double the fee.
Well, to connect with that, back to, you said you might be logging in everything that's in, so you will have a way to check when there was a tree, there wasn't a tree.
Sure, that was part of the
Then-
grant application.
Then
Yes,
comes
to
that
do
enforcement
To do
side
an
again.
inventory, yeah.
So you would have to treat that just like if you damaged it, you're gonna get double the permit fee requirement. But if someone refuses to pay for it, they already put a $500 tree in, how hard does the city go to rectify that issue or that violation? Or can they?
I think that would be up to the tree board then.
How far do you go, though, is what I'm saying.
At the discretion of the tree board.
All right, just looking at
Yeah,
potential for down the road,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
yeah.
No one, I believe, is gonna plant a tree in a negative way. Or they're that bored, they need this kind of attention.
Yeah.
We don't have many spiteful tree plantings.
Correct, not at this time. Not at this time.
Any new interesting category of violations?
Right,
I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna plant weeping willows everywhere.
right.
Yeah,
It would
Just
be
that tree at home.
yeah.
peaceful protest, maybe?
Well, in that a lot of people in town wouldn't even occur to them that this sort of a permitting
Yeah.
or overview of their trees and things exists. If we are going to establish all of these permits or fees or specifics on what can be planted, I would think we have to have some sort of an educational
Yeah.
outreach somehow.
Once things are fleshed out more and there's more body to things, I'll start doing social media. And then obviously, as the October event happens at the end of the year, that'll also spread the word.
Well, and then when we, assuming that we get the grant to do the tree survey, I mean, that will give us something kind of cool, to share with people is, here's what we have. And then once we have that information, then we should be able to get additional grant funding to plant trees. And there's another opportunity to educate people about why we're planting what we're planting and how to plant them correctly. And yeah, so I think there's some good opportunities coming forward.
I think just the language about the cut above the ground, there's different pruning. I'm just thinking of my own
Right.
pruning, and then I'm like, $25 permit to, because a garbage truck can't drive down the street, and yeah, I could call you guys, but,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
versus topping an oak tree on
Yeah.
14, like those are kind of two different
Right.
things, two different
Yeah.
beasts. So how do you
Could you say something about
spell that out in this?
Yeah.
In this,
pruning, using good
or do you,
good practice,
Right.
something?
the the thing that crosses my mind is that I don't know if we're like moving a good direction.
Sure.
But-
This language was taken from like an Arbor Day USA pamphlet
Yeah.
directly.
Oh no, and some communities do. Like you
Mhm.
can't touch a parkway tree. Like you're going to jail if you like trim a branch off.
Then we certainly, we could say, cut above the ground, you could cut above the ground and leave it to, do you want to leave it to disturb any tree? Or damage any tree?
Yeah. I think Jay, you used the word damage, didn't you? What, you used some
Yeah.
language,
Damage.
prune to harm or prune to damage or
Yeah, so
something like that.
so remove cut above ground.
There's a big difference between like the tree I did. It's just, there were some suckers coming off the
Yeah.
bottom and just trimming them up.
Yeah.
And one little one that had come out, they're gonna hit you when you're trying to drive past it with the lawnmower versus the oak on 14 where they just,
Yeah.
Yeah. So remove cut above ground, disturb, and replace with trim to, prune to harm
Prune to harm,
or damage.
sure.
Tree company.
How did they work on 14 without?
Yeah, like having to stop traffic.
I mean,
Did you know when it? I mean, I saw it after it had happened, but like working on
It was a
US
while
highway
ago.
is
I
hard.
know. And it happened.
Around
like-
14, I don't know where those trees.
so this is, just north of, or just south of McKinley,
Yeah, just south
On-
of
on
McKinley.
they have
On the east or west side?
east side.
East side, yeah,
It might be on Google Earth already.
yeah.
I'll take a look next time I
Just
drive
the grass
by,
field where
because I
everybody
never
sits up
noticed.
there protesting stuff.
I'm sorry?
Just across the street from the grass field where everybody protests and stuff, set up their little,
Oh, right on the corner there?
It's like one or two houses in.
yeah.
Okay. Somehow I do. So there's one on the corner and then there's one that's kind of green.
It's one of
There's
those
two.
ones where, you're looking at the roadway.
Yeah.
But, arborists generally stare at the gaps in the trees to figure out where the roads are. And if you see one of those,
Yeah.
it's super, because they
Oh,
just
yeah.
crowned
Topped
it,
it.
Well, and it was a while ago, because I remember coming home from work,
Mhm.
and it had happened. It was like it had been done, and I would have noticed it if it were like that the day before, because
Right.
it's like,
Yeah, I drive by there almost every day and I noticed
Yeah.
the very first day right away, I'm like,
yeah.
wow, that was fairly aggressive.
But that was probably 15 years ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
You know?
I remember when it
Yeah.
happened.
10?
Maybe.
10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it was a while
Yeah.
ago.
Lived here.
That long ago?
Yeah,
it could have been 7, 5. Because it has regrowth, but nothing,
no.
It's dying. I think it's collapsing
Oh,
now.
yeah,
I think it's dying.
yeah. I'm surprised it's lasted as long as it has.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Very good.
And the ordinance does specifically refer to not topping trees. That is specifically mentioned in there, so.
Do,
What's that?
Reference polarity.
What's that?
it's a specialized style of
Topping
pruning.
trees.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's actually, it originates from like French peasants where they would top the plane trees and then they'd sucker out and that was the peasants' firewood.
Okay.
And then it became, in Europe, it's an accepted,
Oh,
Pruning
some sort of coppicing.
it's kind of like espalier, but,
Oh, yeah. I don't know
espalier is
French.
where you try to do it against
Yeah,
a brick
I tried to do
wall.
that with an apple tree and it's just one of those things you gotta do every day. And,
Yeah. It's similar to doing, it's a similar technique as that, except instead you just top a tree.
And
But-
you continuously cut back to the same
Same.
nubs.
And they're kind of cool because you'll get this like big weird knobby head
Knob.
thing and you'll get all these suckers coming out of it. But no one does it.
Okay.
Do we need to motion to approve this then?
so if you motion.
With that minor change in
Correct.
language?
I will make that change and forward it on, so then it would just be, motion to approve, pending those edits.
It'd be motion to recommend approval
Yeah.
to the city council.
Yep.
That's what it would be.
Oh, to the city council?
Yep.
Because the council has the final approval.
Then I will so motion what you said. Because that sounded good.
And it's recorded, so we know what it was. Okay.
Does somebody second?
Second? Okay, Jay, thank you. Any other comments or questions about the language? Okay, those in favor? Aye? Opposed? Okay. We've got some penalty language. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to item number 5, tree selection. And Shawn provided us with, and Shannon, yes, thank you, list of trees. So do you want to explain?
Sure. So we just kind of went through the Morton Arboretum's selecting and planting trees, and they have a Northern Illinois species tree list. We just kind of went through that list and tried to, this list is huge and varied, and some trees don't make sense for what we want, and kind of narrowed it down to this list so far. With different applications, street tree versus a park setting versus more ornamental and smaller trees. There's certainly room to add or subtract or discuss other options or whatever, but just something to start from. And then, in this guide is also, they list out like whether it works well in confined spaces, how easily these trees can be found. There's just different little categories, nuisance, native, so on and so forth.
Or just order from the website.
I just picked this up, or I've been at events of theirs where they've had this.
Is it on the website?
Is there a
It is,
PDF
actually, I
online?
sent a PDF form out to some people. It was related, I could send the PDF, I can
Yeah.
send a PDF form.
Could you just, so we have it, just for reference?
Yeah, of course.
Because I actually haven't been there in a while.
Yep.
Looking at some of these street trees, it can be, this is not limited, right? We can go a little broader into some of the species, the more common, like your maple and your oaks. So if somebody wanted something that was not on the list, could you put something in like maple and oak that says most or all species of that is permittable in a street or an
Well,
easement?
Maybe.
Like if somebody wanted what's the red one?
Autumn Blaze.
Autumn Blaze?
Yeah, the blazes and stuff like that, you would,
We did put a Marmo on there, which is a Freeman cultivar. It's a seedless Freeman cultivar.
I think like in general, people are just gonna go the yellow one, the red one, the orange one.
I think this list should be what the city works from in the trees that they select.
Oh,
And that can
okay.
be a little bit different.
For a citizen.
Related to the permit request,
Right,
it could be based off of this and then upon
consideration.
upon approval.
Yeah.
Like if they have some funky tree, some tree that they just love, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
we have
that's
to
a good
say
idea.
no.
Do you want to kick
Yeah.
that to committee, or do you want to leave that at staff discretion?
Staff discretion. Would be, I don't know that as part of this committee, we want to sit there and say, no,
Yeah,
Mrs. Jones, you can't.
Right,
because that process is going to take, an extra 30 days depending upon
Yeah.
when they
Right.
make the request, because it's going to come to committee, and whereas staff can, address it as soon as they file.
Common sense lever.
Yeah.
Just let them.
The what?
The common sense lever, yes, I know.
I like that idea that it's a list of trees that the city would kind of utilize, and then beyond that, if a resident has a specific tree that's not on this list, in our current language, I think, had that information, like if you had a tree, you just need to contact Public Works to get it approved. So the permit process would cover that issue.
And this would be, once the inventory is completed,
Right.
we can modify and adjust this
Sure.
list to ensure good diversity and things like that as well, so.
It's already a better place to start already. You've got it split up just right for all those purposes or reasons why you'd want to plant.
Yeah, based off of the inventory, it might tell us that there might be something on this list that if it doesn't come off the list, it would be planted
Overplanted.
sparingly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, we might find that
Like
20%
honey
of our,
locusts.
yeah, we might find 20% of our
exactly the
parkway
tree I
trees
said.
are already honey locust.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there's nothing wrong with the
Yes.
honey locust, but for a number of years, we should not be planting more honey locust because we're already honey locust. And I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good example because I believe there's a lot of honey locusts.
Yes.
So
There are,
I have two in my right of way. So
yeah, yeah.
People love them.
they're a great shade tree, but
Yeah.
You can grow turf under them. It's huge
Yeah.
for people.
yeah.
The
But then they
maples, as they mature,
extend up.
you start to lose your turf under them, and they get a lot of surface roots, and people don't like that, so.
But moss is pretty.
You had mentioned cherry. I don't know of which, so there's a lot of ornamental cherries, and most of them are not very winter hardy here. And
Hence,
which is why that's
I would
actually where
have
I'm
to look up
going.
the exact species, but one of the ones that's most common actually in Japan, they just actually pulled them all out. Washington DC had a whole street lined with them. They were to the age where they had to be pulled out. They had been a gift from Japan to the
Yeah.
U.S. But in Japan, they've got cherries that are, I know because I've been to northern Japan, where it's like Minnesota type weather, and they've got cherry trees that are just fine. And they predominantly, they have the cherry trees that are non-fruiting. They're all ornamental cherry trees that line the sidewalks and the streets and the parks and everything.
So yeah, I think if you can find out what that cultivar, what that variety is, it certainly could go on this list. I just didn't know which one that was. Is it the Kwanzaa? It could be. But yeah, if you can find out what variety of cherry is hardy, especially non-fruit bearing, hardy, winter hardy cherry, that would be great to add to probably the ornamental list. Canada cherry. It's the
What is a katsura?
I was wondering the same thing.
I've never heard of a katsura.
So what?
It's in the deciduous park trees, katsura.
It's an Asian, it's its own thing.
Oh,
It's an
okay.
Asian tree. It's kind of got a heart-shaped leaf.
Oh.
Yeah, I also,
World.
some of them are kind of red. Yeah, there's a katsura. Beautiful.
They're great, they're fast growing, pretty.
Lanzan is the one in Washington.
Pretty decent performing tree.
It's pretty.
Or, you know what they were called?
Yeah. And then do we want to have a prohibited list? That, I mean, just from the staff standpoint, that you can just say, well, no,
Right.
that, we're not planting those. Like tree of heaven.
Fruit trees, Norway maples, ornamental pear, silver maples, willow, river birch, and evergreens for the parkway.
We can add that, if we're gonna add a list of acceptable trees, we'll make, I would say, suggest that we also have a list of
Yeah.
prohibited. Because then that way, nobody asks for special consideration for their Bradford pear.
Right. Yeah. Just say no.
There's none of that in existence right now, right? Citywide? Something that would be in an easement or something that would be, is
Prohibited.
not, yeah.
Generally speaking, it would be like, if somebody came forward and said, hey, can I plant this?
I mean,
It's
existing.
fine.
If it's there, does the city now have to take it out since it's official? Or it becomes official?
I'm unaware of any
No, there's no
pine
prohibitions.
trees in the
Yeah.
right of way.
Okay.
Other than evergreen
Right.
is
Yeah.
prohibited.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm just throwing
Right.
it out there just
Yeah.
to say, hey,
But then there's only like 6 trees that
That
you
were
can
listed,
plant, in the right of way, and I think 3 of them are maples. Or something.
That we want to add to the prohibited.
Yes.
So I think a big one to get on that prohibited list to discuss, well, actually Norway maple would be one to discuss, and then also the calorie pear. Because that's a debatable, not everyone would necessarily agree that those are bad. Although I think calorie pear is officially on the state
Yeah,
of
it's
Illinois
on, it's
invasive
an
list, right?
invasive species now. I mean, it's a,
Escaped the
it is, and
landscapes.
they're not, I mean, they don't grow well. I mean, they grow, but they tend to have problems.
Very structurally unsound.
Yeah, exactly, so.
Actually,
it's-
for that reason alone, we could certainly have it on our prohibited list, just from a structural
Yeah,
point of view.
yeah, it's
That it
just,
falls apart and causes storm
I
damage.
think
Exactly.
the one conflict we might have is river birch as a prohibited, but I believe the Arboretum actually suggests it
For confined.
confined spaces, so,
oh, the river birch?
yeah,
Oh,
so.
There
You
was,
have
there was,
somebody who's doing their due diligence, there might be a little pushback on
there
some
was
things.
somebody that, that had come up in discussion about, Ayer Street being good space for river birch. Because it is a different tree and it, you know, lower limbs aren't necessarily usually a thing with it and, you know, something radically different than, you know, the honey locusts that are up there.
Which single stem would be appropriate?
What was the pros and cons of the other tree you mentioned? You had two you wanted to say that might be
Oh, the
prohibited?
Norway?
Huh?
Norway maple?
Yeah, what's the good and bad about that one?
The
I don't know what
biggest
it is, that's what I'm asking.
concern with the Norway maple is they tend to always end up with girdling roots. So they become a tree that goes into decline and then structurally becomes compromised because they can fail at that root girdle. So, and they're really good for heaving sidewalks too.
oh, yeah, because they're the ones that you end up with
With
all
a
the
ton of
surface
roots
roots.
on
Yeah,
them,
Right.
but
that you're like trying to mow
longevity,
grass
they're
is
not, they,
growing there, yeah.
when they're dug, if they don't occur naturally, they've actually shown that when they're dug, the roots grow at a 90-degree angle to the cut. So they're like genetically programmed to have trunk encircling roots, so.
So not a problem until you hit it with your lawnmower and then you say, oh, why is it so big and how do you get rid of it? Yeah,
Except then suddenly there's no lawn growth.
Right.
Because of all the roots, so you
Right.
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't have
Roots
to mow.
and, you know, they have a
Yeah.
larger leaf, so you get a very dense outer canopy. So that's, yeah. it's-
where would you buy those? Or do
you
people
can
who
buy
sell them
Oh, yeah.
adhere to that prohibition or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, no, they're very common. They're all over.
Do you know Crimson King?
The red leaf.
The
Yeah, yeah.
maroon leafed one? That's a Norway.
That's a Norway.
That's
Oh.
a type of Norway.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of,
so it doesn't
And-
like transfer over to somebody selling the trees, they're gonna sell them regardless?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, we wouldn't be buying them.
Right,
And again, there is a slight difference between what city will be planting versus what a homeowner
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
may request.
Right. But in terms of like for when folks are building and they have to put in parkway trees, then they have to use our list.
Right.
They can't just go and get the,
Yeah, with the new development, it should be easy to track
Street
that.
Yeah.
grade trees from
yeah,
Yeah,
Gertie's.
yeah,
Which there's
Right.
there's enough options on here that we're not,
right.
I think there's enough choices that it's not
Yeah.
restrictive.
Yeah. And when we were talking through it, we both service vast areas in Lake and McHenry counties. These trees perform fairly well too, so they should be an asset to the community, which is what we're hoping for, so, yeah.
Not an eventual liability.
Ability
Right.
or something that's only gonna last 20 years, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Maybe we'll recover those tree-lined,
Yeah.
canopy-lined
Wouldn't that be nice?
streets, yeah.
Okay, do we have any,
So we have to add the prohibited
yep,
and then get the we think it's a Kwanzaa cherry.
Yeah, that's what I saw, was Kwanzaa.
It's a good tree. It's, oh, okay.
I've planted
Okay,
for a client. It's reasonable.
okay.
Yeah. Stay smaller, so it'd be a good one to add for the ornamental.
Any other comments, additions?
There is some selections are made at year end for parks, correct? How are park trees chosen?
Park trees, I mean, I don't think there's been a standard, but certainly if there was something mentioned at this board, you know, obviously with the tree board being involved, I imagine that park tree selection would be something that would be in the realm, maybe just based upon either this list or, discretion. You know, if we're gonna be planting a bunch of trees at a park, then generally speaking, it's probably gonna be an event or something like that.
Right, like our next agenda
Yes,
item.
Exactly, yeah.
Because the whole bottom of that list is not for parkway, it's just for other use spaces.
Right.
Open spaces.
Park.
So what needs to happen? Rob, can you figure out where to put this in the
We can.
In the
we can-
code?
We can add a subcategory to the code of accepted and not accepted trees.
Okay. And then there's also the section elsewhere in the code that lists the trees that can be planted in the parkway that we need to,
Yeah, so in the
Yeah.
public properties, we can amend
Right.
that and
Yeah.
just say, see tree board for regulations regarding trees in public property or right of way, and just have everything reference this.
perfect.
I would recommend you'd have the trees, approved trees for street ornamental and then, the parks. And then prohibited trees, whatever that list would be. And then some kind of language that would state if a tree you wish to plant is not on this list, then you need to contact Public Works
Right.
which I think the permit should probably include that if you want
Yeah.
a tree not on this list, and the permit should have the list of approved trees and
Sure.
prohibited trees.
So I guess next thing is, since we don't have a prohibited list today, the next tree board meeting, if there's a prohibited list established with what's invasive or a reference, and then that way we can tie it all up at the same time and enter it all at that time.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. So October event, Saturday, October 5th at Mary's Park. And one of the things I was wondering is, like, looking at this list, would we want to try to get an assortment of trees that are on the list for that planting so that we have, them that people can see?
You don't have any oaks in your
Swamp
trees
white
for
oak.
park.
Yeah, burr, scarlet, swamp white, and chinkapin.
Yeah, for park trees.
Oh, geez, I skipped right over oaks. There we are.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. No worries.
And swamp white is suggested as a street tree as well.
I did see that, yeah.
Does anybody?
Is there a difference between swamp white oak and white oak? What is the difference?
Tolerance of site selection and size are probably the two biggest things.
Swamp white
Yeah,
oaks, you don't see a ton of them in the county. They have a white underside to their leaves. They're kind of like hybrid between half of a bur oak and half of a white oak.
I see.
But they're,
Yeah, that's Babso.
It's so
but I'm just saying that they're Not
Kinda.
exactly like a white oak and not exactly like a bur oak.
I think the
in
biggest
between.
thing
In
is they're more tolerant of a urban, suburban setting.
Of bad soils.
A bad soil, a drought soil, a oversaturated soil, and they don't tend to get as large.
Well, I grew up in Virginia, and in the Shenandoah, there's tons of white oak, like just
Oh, sure.
mountain sides full of white oak. Very pretty trees, so.
Right.
But I wasn't familiar with the swamp white oaks.
They're kind of neat. They have an exfoliating characteristic
Oh, yeah,
to
their
their younger
bark.
twigs and
Yeah.
stuff. So there's a little visual interest with them in the winter. But yeah,
On it is Yoshino.
Yoshino.
It's the other cherry tree.
Is the Kwanzaa one of them?
Now, the Kwanzaa's in the family of it. Now, the Kwanzaa is ones that people recommend if you like the Yoshino, but you want one that flowers later versus one that flowers sooner. The Yoshino flowers sooner. That's more like you see in Japan in spring where it goes across the country. And from what I just did, the Kwanzaa one is one that has purple flowers instead of white flowers, and
Right.
flowers more mid to late summer.
And that one has more of the like upright kind of habit too. At least the one that I have experience with. So that'd be useful in a parkway, potentially.
Supposedly they do fruit. Just reading right here, but I guess it's so small that it's inconsequential, and apparently the birds love it.
Yeah.
So there's no littering. It says specifically here under its profile that there's insignificant litter.
It'll be similar to the calorie pair.
That we'll find it everywhere.
Mike, is there anything on this list that you don't want on this list, or anything that you'd like on this list?
So the only thing on the street trees, so street trees will be something between the road, the sidewalk and the road. Some caution should be used on anything that creates debris or, say a nice horse chestnut on a sidewalk or a litter of horse chestnuts on a sidewalk. Same with, like, as much as I hate to say it, oak, if there's a bunch of acorns on a sidewalk, then do we then become liable for the debris,
Kind of like black walnut, right?
Yeah, I have people that want to take their gorgeous black walnuts down because they stay in their boats.
Unfortunately, black walnut should probably be on the nuisance list for the parkway.
Yeah. Well, and what about the Kentucky coffee tree? They get those big pods.
Almost everything has something.
Right.
But sweet gum is an example, that's a spiky one that if you step on it, it's gonna hurt,
And this, I would leave this at the discretion of the tree board, when you talk about stuff like, catalpa, what it leaves behind.
Yeah.
It's nuisance. Is it a trip hazard? Is it dangerous? Yeah, on the parks.
Yeah.
Because of the
Yes.
house.
And aphid sap, so,
Really?
yeah, they get aphids a lot, so.
Yeah.
I think, you're in control of these planting locations.
Mhm.
So, you can look at the space and say, okay, a buckeye makes sense here, but
Right.
we wouldn't want to do it here because of this.
And I've had instances where, I've had somebody that really wanted a buckeye, and you go there and you're like, okay.
But there aren't a lot of bald cypress yet, though. And they also have a fruit.
Right.
So.
For our October event, do we need to determine how many trees we're actually going to try to plant?
Funding.
And
Right.
whether, well,
Right.
that's why I was going with this, is
Yeah.
if we figure out how many we want, then we can put out a request for sponsorship even. I
Yep.
know the garden club is already, when I talked to them about it, is committed to sponsoring a tree for that.
Good.
And so I assume the city would be buying them all or arranging the purchase, but the different organizations maybe would reimburse
Yeah.
or pay.
Yeah,
But we need to have some sort of framework so people can,
right.
groups can decide what they might want to do.
So, let me just ask, so Mary's Park is, it's got roads on 4 sides, right? So are we talking about some that would be street trees and some that would be park trees?
I would think
There.
certainly you'd have a mix.
Okay. And, I'm wondering, I don't know, this is kind of a, I don't know, this is a crazy idea, but would we want to have our August meeting out there? There's a little pavilion? I mean, because for us to
That would be a
like
great
gather
idea.
there, it has to be a meeting, right? For us all to get together. But if we just did our meeting in August,
You can see a bunch of these trees have been removed because
Right.
they were dying, so currently,
yeah.
It's pretty bare.
Have you gone by there? You've probably ran.
I've run over there. Yeah, that's,
so, look here, there was a lot more trees than there are today.
There's only parking on the east side, right?
There's parking here.
Just the east side of the park. So the rest of the park wouldn't be, if you're looking at your list of trees,
Right.
shouldn't be an
right,
issue.
Right.
Or it'd be debatable or whatever, however you see it.
Yeah, actually, it'd be a good playground for this list. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's
Give
do
you a little
some street
everything?
trees
Yeah.
and then there'd be a
Yeah.
sampling for the selection.
Back on each tree, this is the tree it is.
There you go, that's
Sure.
a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Got any
Exactly.
questions, go down to Mary's Park
Tree
and take a look.
Showcase Park.
That's right.
no, I think
I mean,
definitely
it's perfect
have
for
to
that.
identify them.
The scouts and all that, they do a thing where they have to go out and identify trees and stuff for badges and stuff.
Yeah.
That's perfect, just right there.
Yeah,
You go.
Plaque could
Otherwise,
even
they go-
say,
Otherwise, they go out to Rush Creek to do it.
the plaque could give the name of the tree and sponsored by,
Right.
if we're doing that.
yeah. Definitely.
Good idea.
City might have some budget for some parkway trees.
Depending on what's left, certainly we can carve out some. We've had quite a run of hazard trees with the wind and the storms that have been coming through, so,
So generally speaking, we budget 20 to 30K a year for trees. And how that budget, most of it is consumed, or I should say,
hazards.
for hazards for removal of trees. And then late fall, when it's planting time, then we look to see what's still available under that budget line and purchase trees based on how much money is left.
I did prepay for some fall planting, however, that's more geared towards, replacing trees that were taken down for maintenance activities.
Did we pay for the tree that came down next door?
Yes.
That was an expensive,
$1,800, yeah.
yeah.
So when will you know approximately how much funding you have available?
I mean, generally speaking, October's halfway through the budget year.
Right.
So I really, it'd be tough to commit an amount of funding because we didn't budget extra for a planting event.
Sure.
So
What if we each just try to get
Yeah.
2 sponsors or something?
Yeah,
I think that
Yeah.
would be the big thing, is getting tree sponsors.
yeah.
I was gonna hit up the nurseries. I was gonna hit up Goodmark and
Oh, yeah.
Gertie's and
So I'd suggest
Henry.
trying to
Harvard.
set, to do a dozen trees.
Yeah.
Converse to see if
I was just gonna go right to, we use Harvard for it a lot. I was gonna go to them and Harvard Vet and see, because we're frequent flyers at both.
And Brown Bear.
And Brown Bear.
Brown
'cause-
Bear, I'm sure they'd sponsor a
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah.
They sponsor anything, everything.
Well, what? Because the city can get the trees at wholesale price.
We can
Yeah,
get them
yeah,
wholesale.
yeah, right. So, what should we be budgeting if we're gonna do 12 trees?
I would say a $300 sponsorship per tree. 'Cause that's gonna get you a reasonable tree.
Right.
he's 4 or 5 years old, not
Yeah,
A
it's
little
gonna be a
3-year-old thing.
2 to 3 inch.
Yeah, and that's important and something, and especially a park that's as highly traveled as that one, is we don't want people just snapping them off.
7-year-old tree is gonna be, you hit it, you're gonna know it.
Between 200 to 300. If it's the ornamentals, they might be more in the $200 range.
Okay.
2.5 inch, 3 inch caliper shade tree is probably gonna be.
That would give the cash to pay for the plaques and.
Right. Yeah.
Tree.
I was just, I don't have a cost figure, but I was just working with First Place Promotions in town on creating a plaque for a tree that we're the tree's there, we're gonna put a plaque at it. And they have a very simple kind of plaque. It doesn't have to be cast, it's just a heavy-duty, it's plastic actually, I think, but it's a laser engraved, so they, yeah, and they can laser the wording into it, and they're not nearly as expensive as a cast plate would be.
Okay.
Laser graved.
And it comes complete with the post to put it in. They suggest maybe a cement base if it's in someplace public.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So how do folks feel about having our meeting there in
I think that's
August?
a great
Is that
idea,
good?
because we
Okay.
can kind of earmark some spots or,
Getting comfortable out there, and Rob opens up the door and says, come on in, I'm like, nice out here though. After that heat
Nice
wave
heat. Yeah,
and the mini tornadoes.
it's been crazy. So can we all commit to making some contacts?
I'll contact
Between
Edward
now and-
Jones,
Okay, thank you.
and I've already done the garden club, so I got my two.
Yes, you did.
And I'll bug the Chamber of Commerce just because. They bug me to join them all the time, but I'm like, I'm internet-based, what?
And then Sean, you're gonna talk, which nurseries are you gonna talk to?
I will talk with Goodmark and Gertie's.
I'll talk to Harvard.
I don't know Harvard.
I know Kevin.
Harbor Ford?
I'll hit up Harvard's Ward
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Harvard Vet.
I can talk to Brown Bear too if,
Go
I have
knock
a
on
good
Sean's-
inn. My
Sean's
daughter
door.
works
okay,
there.
okay, well then you do that.
Sean's the guy you want to talk to. He's the
Yeah.
general manager and he's part owner of the group.
We spend way too much money.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You know the show Cheers, like Norm
Yeah.
comes in.
When
Yeah.
you walk in, they go,
We're training a new service manager and Jean's like, oh, tell Shannon I said hi and don't worry about, we'll catch up on the bill later. And the new guy was like, what? Who is this lady?
Okay, and we all have the list, if we're talking to any nurseries. Okay. And Jay, were you gonna talk to
Talk to the Boy Scouts?
yeah, but then also a food truck?
Yes, I gotta track them down still.
Okay.
We talked about the ice cream truck too, but, which is nice, because they drive past our house every day, which is kind of cool, brings back childhood memories, but I don't think people are gonna want ice cream in October.
Oh, or maybe not,
Maybe if
yeah.
they do espresso and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll track down the food trucks.
Thank you. And then, so Boy Scouts are,
Boy Scouts are on board. I've talked to
Okay.
Christina already.
okay,
Maybe you can rattle Adam's cage. I sent him an email and he hasn't got back to me, and
Sure.
I haven't heard back from the Girl Scouts yet. But I did talk with Christina, the Boy Scouts, and they're on board.
Does anybody know if like the high school has like an ecology club or,
I know they have the 4-H, which does like the garden planting and the flowers every year.
okay.
oh,
You
they,
an
yeah, they
in
have the
there, too,
Future
and
Farmers of
the
America, don't they?
FFA.
Yeah, that's why I
FFA.
wondered if they have an
I know those
FFA.
people too.
You know FFA folks that,
I do.
oh,
The Eichels is,
oh, okay.
that's,
I know them a little bit.
I think, Tallulah is the president of the FFA chapter right now.
I think
so.
that's right.
And then Joel, is there any opportunity with ComEd for,
Yep, I've been working on it, so I guess we
Okay.
missed quite a few programs in the last few months. And there is a new regional guy who's trying to assemble all that for the next
okay,
whatever, so we'll get some information in the future on
Okay.
that.
cool.
You have an approximate start date for the event.
Oh, good question. Don't know,
9 a.m.? 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.? What do you think?
I get up at 4, so whenever is good for me.
Oh, you run farmers hours.
Yeah, I can sleep in if it's at 10.
See, in October, it's
Daylight.
before daylight, before the time
Yeah.
change.
Daylight will, be like 8-ish, 7:38, right?
So
Yeah.
maybe 10 to allow things to warm up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, 10 a.m., okay.
10 till we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can probably, well, you have shovels, right?
Yes, and we can also, depending on what's decided, we can take our vac truck and hydro excavate nice, clean, mudless holes. So
That is
that
a
way,
neat toy. I was watching you guys use that. I mean, that's better than any backhoe.
Like
Kriete.
Kriete.
yeah. So basically, we would just take, it's you take a pressure washer and it's like the stuff you'd watch on YouTube. You take a pressure washer and you slice the sod, and then the machine comes down and we can suck all the sod off, and then we can make a nice clean hole. We don't leave any dirt behind. So if we have, if we know what size the root balls are, we can sort of pre-do that, and then also we're not, being that it's cut out with water and sucked out, you're not compacting the soil or doing anything,
It's gonna
nuts
inhibit
there.
root growth on the new trees.
Yeah.
wow,
Then we would need dirt for backfill.
yeah,
Compost and dirt.
Yeah, so we could have that either in a dump truck nearby, or, we can figure, maybe we just dump some near the hole somewhere, clean backfill.
Probably mulch. We can review how to properly mulch them in. And
yeah. Yeah,
I could probably, do you have gator bags?
We don't.
Would your office donate gator bags maybe?
October.
we might have some at our
We
office.
could certainly get them, but they're not going to have a lot of time to.
I want to water them.
We can
Yeah.
keep them watered
Do you have a water
through
truck?
like the end of, so we have the Vacon, which is that hydro excavation machine. It holds 1,500 gallons of water. So we could certainly use that to fill the bags, till freeze or till November.
Yeah, probably until Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather.
The one concern that we will have with that is vandalism. I've been told that some of the places we've tried gator bags before, they end up getting sliced, and
I have a 100-pound German Shepherd. I'll just tie him out there.
that's fine.
They did okay at the library.
Did they?
Yeah, when they had a bunch of trees planted and
Okay.
used them, and
Try.
yeah,
If we get the community excited, they might not want to damage things.
right, exactly. I mean, that's part of the, it's like, this is good. This is a nice thing for them, you know, for all of us. Okay. Okay, anything else on the planting day? Okay. Mayor's report.
I don't really have anything to report, other than I'm interested to find out where we are with hanging the Tree USA signage.
I have been poking IDOT over and over again to see, I have not, well, I've talked to the yard maintenance guy in Woodstock, Anthony, multiple times. I have yet to hear a response. I also had to poke him for landscaping, or their landscaping crew, because the weeds are growing up in the ditch line at 173 and Marengo Road when you're staring left. They've been quite evasive. I will send another email tomorrow and see if I can reach out to Anthony and prod him some more.
Copy me on the email, please.
Yeah.
That's all I have this evening.
Because you know how you could hear from them real quick is if you just put one of them up.
I don't want to be on IDOT's bad side. You know, so, because I think, let's see here.
As soon as you do something they're supposed to be doing, but they're not doing,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they'll be all over you.
Because I've asked them on a few, at least a couple occasions without response. So,
Well, copy me, and then if we don't get a response, then I'll engage our elected representatives to nudge.
There you go.
product,
Yeah, Senator Severson,
Yes,
is that how you say it?
Severson. yes.
Severson, yeah.
And Representative Joe Sosnowski,
Oh, yes, Sosnowski, yep.
who was just in Harvard helping Habitat for Humanity on their build, I think, last weekend.
Oh, well, we
Doing
should
very nice
invite them
things
to
out
the
there.
tree day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any new business? No, okay. Our next meeting will be, August 7th at Mary's Park at 6:30. And motion to adjourn? Okay, we're staying.
Check
Also motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.